you're going to look at estimates, a lot of times it's kind of counterintuitive, but the scale of the project matters to us. I mean, we look at almost the risk being, or not almost, but the risk is lower to us when the project is larger, especially if there's obviously pre-sales. If you just bring a $50 million budget with nothing attached, then there's no demonstrable credibility or credit quality there. But if it's a bigger picture with pre-sales, we feel more confident that that scale is going to get it over the top, that the people whose equity have more of a vested interest in helping it through the process. So we look at bigger projects. We do small ones. We do them for relationship purposes. We do them when there's a very credible sponsor in place, a good sales company, a good distributor, any number of different reasons, but that we may get into a smaller one, but we're more judicious about those. So when you're coming to, especially my bank, there's a threshold. There are other banks, though, not so much that we compete directly with, but who are actually active in financing smaller budgets, and they do a great job. So that segment of the market is still covered. There's still 2 or 3 players out there who do a very good job in that space. It's not really where my bank's appetite is, but so when I say scale, I mean I'm looking at 10 million is really the kind of starting point. That said, we've done things from 3 and on, and we would consider in the future, but that part of the market is typically covered by other more local guys.
A couple of points of context, and then I actually want to talk about some of the things that the guys raised, because there are some interesting points and hopefully generate some dialogue out of it. On some level, I empathize with you guys trying to find financing. And what I mean by that is, I joined Relativity a year ago, and prior to that I was with Universal Studios for 12 years through various owners, the last one being the General Electric Company. And when I was there, they were a AAA rated company. And so access to capital was not an issue. And so one of the things I was looking for a smaller company in trying to do lots of different things. And it's been a tremendous education for me what a smaller company needs to do to get a film financed. The first thing I've learned is you have to have a good banker, and my banker is sitting right on my right. So Brian is the real deal. UBOC has been a great partner to us, so it's easy for me to give them a little bit of a shout out, if you will. Relativity got its name, got its start really, and it's all really Ryan Kavanaugh arranging slate financing deals. And I think that we did something that was called the Gun Hill transactions that were financing Sony and Universal slates. The successors to those were the Beverly One transaction, which finances Sony's slate, and that was backed by Citibank. And then what we call Beverly Two, which is the deal that finances Universal slate. And that money came from our minority owner. It's a hedge fund private equity outfit called Elliott Associates out of New York.
But no, pre-sales are not dead. They are not like they used to be in terms of what, you have to be pickier with the projects you're picking. But pre-sales are alive. It's just a matter of a bunch of elements, your budget, your genre, your actors, what does the package look like? Because there are situations where, we go to the market and we can do 60, 70%. It just depends on what it is.
The question is P&A financing. My experience has been working with the distributor in our deal with the distributor picks up the P&A. So as Joe was describing it, it sounds like it's a different entity than I've been familiar with, and I'd like him to explain.
Well, I mean, you are correct. The historical model, of course, the domestic distributor, particularly certainly the studios and the mini majors, if they took on the distribution of the film domestically, they would put up the P&A. However, there was a change in the accounting practices a few years ago. It used to be the case that when they put up P&A, it would be treated like an investment in the negative, where they would basically capitalize it and amortize it over the useful life of the film. That has changed, and they now have to write off 100% of their P&A expenditure in the year in which it's incurred. Before, they recognize revenue. So particularly, and I've done several P&A deals with Lionsgate, a small, obviously not part of a huge conglomerate. where if they have to write off a $20 or $25 million P&A spend in a quarter with no offsetting revenue, that's a huge hit against their quarterly earnings. So they are very interested in P&A, and you know what? Even the studios who are now on a tighter leash, you know, they're all parts of bigger conglomerates. They're fighting for capital with other units within the conglomerate. And obviously General Electric, the $25 million hit's not going to necessarily, kill their quarterly earnings, but you'll find even the studios these days will be more receptive if you can come with P&A to the table as well.
What I kind of want to focus on is more the business on a micro level, and what we do, Rosanna and I do, starting with like submissions and also using the Hurt Locker as sort of a case study on how to finance a film through foreign. I mean, on a very basic level, I sort of break down making a movie in this town into 3 levels. There's, for those of you who are lucky enough to ever get into a studio and be able to work with the studio, that's obviously, one way to make a movie. The second way is to obviously have, rich friends or a rich uncle who wants to fully equity finance your movie. And the third way is through foreign. Which is how Voltage basically makes all of our movies. We are, a foreign sales company, and everything has to be foreign driven. Most of our projects come from, we come from various sources. One is agencies. So, for example, The Hurt Locker was a film that was submitted to us through CAA. It had Catherine Bigelow attached already, and the script was fully developed and ready to go. So, we basically analyzed the project, and this was a very rare case in which we took a project and committed to it at a very early stage without any talent attached, based solely on a director. And that does happen from time to time. We have a few other projects that we did that with, for example, George Romero, or certain established directors that we knew would appeal to the foreign buyers. So The Hurt Locker we got just with Catherine attached, and worked with the producer to get it to a budget that we felt comfortable with. And we basically then, the next step was taking it to a market and selling it, which is what we do.
In the context of talent, how do you demonstrate something that's real versus something that is in the ether somewhere? Something that's real versus something that's in the ether somewhere. So the steps that you take in getting your project from wherever it starts with you to somewhere that you're distributing it and actually making money with it are all a series of steps of going from something that's theoretical to a real document, a real agreement, a real set of agreements that lead to the film being distributed and you receiving cash for it. And so one of the things I think that when you go to these things, it's helpful to think that you left with something that's usable later. And so the first observation I want to make is that, I think someone mentioned it earlier, but this town is a one-room schoolhouse. It is the smallest possible environment you can imagine in terms of the way that relationships work, and Brian mentioned it with the sponsorship. So Screen Capital, we're the largest shareholder in a $300 million credit platform called Aramid Entertainment Fund, and we also do a lot of domestic, we're the largest buyer of domestic tax credits. We also have a foreign structured tax department and an advisory arm. And just in those capacities, I think everyone will agree this is a randomly assembled group of people. So we have an investment, we're a piece of the mezzanine in Summit that released Hurt Locker. We have a long relationship with IM Global, which we recently parted ways in a very profitable way on. Paranormal Activity was a big part of another component of our business called Incentive Film Entertainment, a joint venture we did with William Morris Endeavor and JP Morgan, and Paranormal Activity, the follow-on for Oren Peli called Area 51, was a giant piece of that business. We are in the Beverly slate with Relativity. I'm talking to Brian at the moment about 2 other financings, and Strook is our biggest attorney. So if there's any question about how interrelated all of the relationships are and the sponsorship role goes, this randomly assembled group of people should go a long way to demonstrating that the first step, the first And most important thing you can do is to get that sponsorship in whatever way. And it's already been discussed how you can do it in a couple ways with lawyers, deposits or retainers, things that let people know you're real. But I want to discuss, and actually with everyone's help, if everyone's willing to participate, in the basic areas of getting your picture from start to finish. What is real about it? What can you do from the script stage to the packaging stage to get the attachments necessary to take it to a sales agent? And what is how do you then move to a sales agent who is interested to a sales agent who's representing the picture? And how do you go from that to a picture that's being sold foreign to a picture that has a realistic shot at being distributed domestically? And so I would suggest the following is a reasonable chain of things to try to put together from start to finish.